Awesome. Harry, thank you for joining me. Could you just start by introducing yourself and telling me and telling us a little bit about you and your firm?
Yeah, sure, Adrian. So Harry Edwards, I'm the managing director of Bell Partners Norwest. So we're part of the broader Bell Partners group, and our office is based at Norwest Business Park, which is northwest of Sydney.
Awesome. So we were chatting before the call. What actually led you originally to look at offshoring? And can you tell me a little bit about your journey so far?
Yes, offshoring, to be completely transparent, was something that I would say I resisted for quite a long time. I sort of felt that there was wanted to provide local employment within Australia. I think what really changed though was the fact that just the market had shifted in Australia. So I was just facing the reality of the talent pool in Australia, where the depth of availability of talent was not the same as what it had been for probably the previous 20 years in terms of the availability of staff, also the longevity of staff as well. So I'd had conversations with friends and other people who ran firms, and they'd given really positive feedback in offshoring, and also, yeah, saying that the longer you do it, the better it gets as well. So it was just time for us, just really around providing that baseline. Baseline is probably not the right word because that really understates the capabilities of the offshore team, but just that consistency of capacity.
Yeah. And can you, before we get onto the actual offshore team and their capacity, can you tell me a little bit more about you and I first chatted over a year ago, but what
Mm.
was your journey from there to, you mentioned before you were chatting to other firms, but what did you do as part of your sort of due diligence process on, offshoring in general?
The main things I did was to speak to people in other firms, and even interestingly enough, candidates that we were interviewing for roles. And one of them actually mentioned Frontline. So that was what really I was already thinking about offshoring. And then they mentioned Frontline. That piqued my interest. And then I did more reading about, yeah, offshoring and Frontline in particular as well.
Yeah, awesome. And how long have you had your offshore staff for now?
So they really started with us, I believe, would have been about January. So it's currently August 24, and I believe would have been late January of this year that they joined us. Yep. So just over 6 months.
And how have you found, your first foray into offshore staffing? Like, what have you seen from those particular staff? What's the performance been like? Pros and cons, expectations?
Look, some of the stuff that our guys have done, their skill set has just blown me away on particular things. So for, for me, there's been particular tasks that we might have had to do for clients, and I thought, oh, I'll have to do this myself, and they've been able to step in and really help me. Whether it's things around just putting Excel tables together and doing it in a way that I just couldn't even imagine being capable of doing, and even starting out with basic bookkeeping and BAS processing and individual tax returns. But no, it's been a really positive experience. It's really helped add capacity when we've needed it most.
Yeah, awesome. And your staff did some of the frontline training up front. How did you find that training for the
Uh,
staff?
That was really helpful. It was really helpful. I would liken it to, and from speaking to other firms, they sort of said you've got to think about your offshore team like grads. And I know that was the same in conversations that we had. And yeah, I think what that training did is really just accelerated their ability to, from day one when they joined us, to really just have a capability of being able to start taking on work a lot sooner. So I would say if I was to compare it to, how well do they hit the ground running to when we would employ a grad, they definitely hit the ground running better than if you just employed a grad
Yeah.
fresh into the firm.
Yeah, I think part of that is obviously a lot of the candidates you'll get accountants with a couple of years experience, but they may not have
Yes.
the experience. So that's the part where we always say to firms, think of them as a grad in the way you would train them, but they'll probably ramp up faster because they've already got good accounting experience under their belt.
Yeah. That our experience definitely confirms that.
Yeah, awesome. And what about your future plans? I know you had two to start. You're looking at adding a couple others. Can you tell me a little bit more about where you plan to go with the offshore team?
Yeah, our plans really are that, again, along the theme of, like employing a grad, is we're really committed and excited about having, we bring on our offshore team members like a grad, but really being able to move them through the ranks of experience so that they don't just remain doing, entry level work. They really develop their skill set and move on to doing more and more, ultimately being able to speak to clients as well and engage with clients at a higher level as well. So yeah, we really enjoy seeing the progression of our team members. So we're definitely committed to that as part of their development, which in turn obviously helps our business too.
Yeah, that's great. What about cultural challenges? Have you experienced any cultural challenges? Obviously, I think most people come into this knowing that there are some cultural differences, but have you seen any so far?
Probably an advantage we've had is a couple of our team members in Australia already had experience working with offshore team members, so they were able to prepare us. And Frontline has done a great job in letting us know what some of the differences are as well. So probably from our experience, and my advice would be just go in open-minded and take that feedback on initially, but definitely go in open-minded. And even I've got to say that we do, for example, every Monday we will do, everyone in the firm goes around and what's your highlight from work last week, highlight outside of work, and that includes our offshore team. It's really important that they're included in everything that you would include your onshore team with. And yeah, what our team members say that they got up to on the weekend and everything is just, it's unreal. It's fascinating. Like sometimes you look at it and go, that's the sort of stuff that we would do on holidays, and that's what they get to do as part of their everyday life. So I think in terms of improving our cultural understanding, but I just find it so interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. We always say to firms, think of them as your Manila office. You know, you've got your Sydney office, you've got your Brisbane office, you've got your Hobart office. This is just your Manila office, and treat them exactly the same, and try to incorporate people into team events and prizes and competitions and anything you've got. And that's like the icing on the cake. We also talk a lot about the structures and meetings and keeping in good communication with the staff. So you mentioned there at the start, you've got that weekly meeting. Do you have a direct manager who manages the staff offshore? Is it you yourself?
So they're a part of an existing team. So each manager will manage their own team, and that will include some offshore staff. And then so every morning and afternoon, each team will have a catch up and managing workflow and everything as well. Plus, there's just the general accessibility through Teams, our phone systems as well. So they're also set up with phones through the computers, so through the VoIP system. So they can also call each other. They can call anyone in the office like they were in the office anyway. So yeah, we've made sure that, and it's just consistent with what we're like onshore anyway, that we basically say our systems are set up so that you could pick up your computer and go anywhere in the world and work just like you're in the office. And that applies to our offshore team as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think the systems, we always say to firms that systems, training and accountability are the key things to make this work. But if you do have good systems in place, that definitely helps. What would you say if you were going to chat to another firm, what would you say would be the first things they should consider, first steps before they go down the offshore path?
I think what's really important is you have to be thinking in advance. So if you're looking at it in a bit of a rush because we're really short of people, that's probably the wrong time or the wrong mindset, I should say, to have. If you might be short of people, but you have to go, this is something that will potentially help us in 3 to 6 months down the track. Don't think that you're just going to, don't treat it like necessarily recruiting an experienced staff member onshore. You've got to think a little bit more medium term than that to make it work properly. Because otherwise, if you're going to rush it, you're not going to provide them with the proper training and foundation, and you need a bit of patience as well. And that's not because they're slower at picking things up. It's just general patience in terms of just learning how things are done in Australia as well. You'll actually find that a lot of the staff are equally as talented, and in many cases more talented than what you'll find onshore anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with anyone, even in Australia, if you're going into a new job, you still take time to learn clients, to learn the way this firm does this, internal culture and connections, and it just doesn't happen overnight. So thinking of it as, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year is much better. And where do you see, what has the impact been on your firm so far? And what do you think the impact will be in a year, 2 years' time?
I think so far it has certainly helped alleviate some of the workflow pressures, that entry level work. And it's starting to build beyond that as well. So it's starting to provide us with more consistent capacity for a lot of the work that we do, which has been great. I think also too, as a secondary benefit, it's just opened the eyes of all our staff in terms of, the world's a bigger place. So it's just being a lot more open-minded as well. So yeah, I think really positive from a workflow and a cultural point of view.
Awesome. And I want to just pivot a little bit now to like recruitment and the HR support provided by Frontline. How did you find the recruitment experience at Frontline?
So much easier than if you're recruiting onshore, like in terms of your time commitment, chalk and cheese. It is so much smoother a process. And what's also been really good is we have our own software and assessment process that we go through, and that's been able to incorporate into how Frontline does the recruitment really well. So that's really helped us merge those two processes together. But in terms of our time that we have to spend on recruitment, so much less than if you're recruiting onshore, a lot less.
Yeah, I think we have a very thorough recruitment process, and we have tests and assessments, but for firms who already have their own, like you guys do, we can incorporate that. And that's where you're merging the best of both, which is great. And what about HR support? Obviously, it's not over once you've got the candidates. There's ongoing support. How have you found the HR support provided by us?
Really good, really proactive. Yeah, our team members have pretty much all gone really well. We've only had one where there's been any sort of instance. And to be honest, that was really something that Frontline were on the front foot with helping us out with. So yeah, my feedback is very much positive in terms of an ongoing HR support. Really good.
Yeah, I think, you've got to be honest when you go into these things. It's human resources. It's not all perfect. And the key is that we're always there to support you, good times and the bad times. Hopefully it's all good times, but it's human resources. It's not perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. One final thing. Would you recommend Frontline to other providers? So to other providers, other firms out there?
Yes, and I already have. So that's a very easy one to say. We had actually, I must say, we had tried, I didn't mention this before, we had tried using offshore probably a few years prior, and it was nowhere near as well structured, systemized, and set out as what our experience has been with Frontline. So yeah, no, short answer is most definitely would recommend and have recommended.
Thank you. No, I think one of the key things that we always say differentiates us is that Mark and John, the two founders, are both accountants and did it for their own firm. So that's the reason why we have such a good structured approach, because they've actually been through it and know exactly the pain points that firms feel. So I'm glad to hear that you've had a good experience so far. So Harry, thank you so much. And that's all for me.
No, thanks, Adrian. Thank you.